And I'm not saying not to have passion and not to believe in things. I'm saying be aware of how much energy you give it and be aware of the return on the investment of that energy. Are you making the results? Are you getting where you want in your life? And if the answer is yes, then completely ignore me and keep doing what you're doing. But if the answer is no, which it probably is, I mean, how many of us are truly living an amazing life where we're like, oh God, I'm so #blessed, right? Not many. We're stressed. We work jobs that we're not feeling like we're that connected to, crushing our souls. We wish we could spend more time with our kids. We wish we could spend more time taking care of ourselves. We wish we could spend more time being happy. What's up, my friend? My name is Ted Ryce, and you are back to another episode of the Legendary Life Podcast. And today I'm super excited to share this episode with you because it's all about ending negative thinking. Far too often we're looking for what's the best exercise? What's the superfood I can take? What's the supplement I can take? What is that one weird trick or that one secret technique that I can use to start getting the results that I want? But the truth is, it has to do usually with your mindset. Your thoughts, your mindset, which causes the thoughts, it's the origin of everything in your life. And today we're going to dive into that. So if you've been in a situation where you're like, why do I get stuck in this negative thinking? Why do I always feel like life is so hard? Why can't I ever get ahead? Why do I feel like I'm cursed with these patterns of behavior that are just seemingly impossible to break? Why am I stuck doing the same thing over and over again? Why am I stuck with this anger issue, just like my dad had or my mother had, and just like my grandfather had, and it's been passed down? Why am I struggling with money just like my parents did, just like my grandparents did? And oh, you know what? My kids are probably going to struggle with money too. It just runs in the family because we're cursed. If you have any resonation, if you resonate with any of that, we're going to talk about that. And let me just cut the bull for a minute. And can I just talk plainly with you? I've been struggling a little bit. My situation, as you probably know from listening, I've been traveling for the past over a year now, I guess, coming up on like 14 or 15 months in Southeast Asia. I was in Costa Rica. I've had this amazing time. I mean, I had an incredible end of the year in 2018. When I went back to see my dad for Christmas and for his birthday and spent that month with him. I spent a month with my dad. I've never spent a month with him. I mean, it was expensive to do. I stayed in a hotel the entire time. And even if, you're paying $100 a night in Vero Beach, it still comes out to be, an expense. But I did it. I got to spend time with him, and it was just a beautiful thing that ended up sending him on a different direction in life. In fact, my dad, since having that month with Giselle and I, he's going to physical therapy now. Before, he was complaining that it was age, why he was just going down in his functionality, why he was feeling so weak and could barely get out of a chair. And now he's back popping, well, maybe not popping out of a chair, but he's been going to physical therapy and doing a stretching class. And he's like, Ted, man, I'm on a totally different level right now. I'm feeling so much better. I've gone in the opposite direction. It's because of you coming and spending time with me. So thank you so much. And believe me, I want to get my dad on to share an episode sometime. Hopefully we can make that happen when I come to see him in 2 months. And then I had this amazing time in Rhythmia, as you probably have heard more than once. Not just doing ayahuasca, although that was a big part of it, but connecting with people, connecting with like-minded people, facing my fears, overcoming my obstacles. And then I ended up in New York City with Giselle's family. We had such an amazing time. And then coming back to Thailand for New Year's. And I was on fire the first couple months, but the last few weeks, it's been kind of rough. I'm going to not lie, right? I'm going to lie. I'm going to not lie. I'm going to not pretend like everything's been going great because it's been quite a struggle. Now, I want to also tell you this because this is an important part of the situation, is that my life is great on paper. I've been traveling. We're making more money than we ever have. We've been helping more people than we've ever helped. We've been making these amazing friends. We've been living a life of adventure and fun and spontaneity, diving into ancient practices of meditation and different types of yoga and breath work and all these different modalities, healing modalities, introspective practices that have taken me to the next level. And part of the issue is that I've become a different person and it's hard to figure out what to do next. Because talking about all the details, the scientific details about exercise and nutrition, look, I love that stuff. I think it's important. I think it's important to know. I think it's a very simple but powerful way of putting yourself on the right track in life. Ever think that focusing on your health or your body is superficial? People who say that are making excuses as to why they're not focusing on it. That said, it's not everything. And mindset wise, I'll tell you, I've been trying to figure out an episode to do, a solo episode. And I've written out these outlines, these completely detailed outlines. And then I just scrapped them. I don't feel connected with this at all. And then finally, I had a call with my coach, Peter Sage, who's been on the podcast a few times. In fact, when I first had Peter on the podcast, it was one of our most shared episodes. Peter's just amazing, and he's my coach. All coaches need coaches. Everyone needs a coach. If you want to get to the next level without trial and error, without the struggle of not knowing what to do next, of feeling like, oh, what do? I don't know what to do. There's so many things I could do, but I just don't know what to do. And thankfully, I had that call with Peter. Giselle and I meet with Peter once a week. And he could sense something was up and gave me a talk and put me on track. And now I'm like turning the corner, and today's episode is a result of that. So not only did I want to share with you that I've just been struggling of what to do and what am I about now that I've had all these amazing experiences. I can't just be about the technical details of nutrition and exercise and sleep. That stuff's important, but I'm finding that the more important thing is a lot of what we don't talk enough about, the mindset in particular. So today I want to share with you some things that I've learned from Peter, and I'm going to explain them and teach them in my own version, in my own way, and how I look at them, because it's going to come out much better when I do that, because Peter is so out there sometimes. By the way, if you don't follow Peter Sage on social media or sign up to his list, I mean, Peter, you just be around that guy. He's one of those people that you can't help but to level up your life when you're around. And not everybody is going to be able to pay Peter, I think it's $25K for his super elite mastermind, whatever it's called. It's $25K a year. But if you're an entrepreneur and you're doing well and you're looking to level up, you definitely want to check Peter out, because he's got a lot to teach. He can change your direction. He's changed my direction. So look, the mindset, so important. And so many of us, we don't know what it means. We pay lip service to it. Oh yeah, mindset's really important. But what does that mean? Does it mean positive thinking? Does it mean never having negative thoughts? Is it pretending to be happy when you're not really happy? Is it looking in the mirror and using affirmations, but not really believing it because you're like, yes, you are a happy and successful person, and then fake smile, What is it? And I wanted to share with you some of the things that have helped me personally. And we're not going to talk too much about science, but of course, you know me. I'm going to bring up some of the science because that's how I help explain things to myself and make sense, and also keep the truth, because the truth is really important to me. Every introspective practice, from Buddhism to psychotherapy to so many different introspective practices, it's all about the truth of reality, the objectivity, as much as we can be objective. That's something that we should all strive for, I believe. So the first thing I want to say is make a decision and choose what you want in life. And while that may seem cliche, let's talk about it for a minute. Let's unpack what that actually means, because so many people feel like they don't have a choice, feel like they do make decisions, but nothing happens as a result. For example, some of the things that I talked about initially, where you feel like you're just running these patterns and you can't break out of them. And for some of us, the patterns are things that we've worked on ourselves and gotten away from the conditioning and upbringing that we went through with our parents. But we still ended up stuck for some reason. And for others, you're just repeating the conditioning, the patterns, the behavioral patterns that you got from your parents that have kind of been handed down, or maybe not even your parents. Maybe it's from the culture that you're in. And we feel like we don't have a choice. We feel like we're powerless to make a different decision. Or we can make a different decision, but we don't see the end result of it. And we feel like we're making a different decision, but the reality is it's not showing up. And what I want you to think about for a minute is that you may feel like you're on a path right now, and that path is kind of set. Feels like it's so hard to deviate from. But the truth is, there are infinite choices. Infinite choices. Change can happen in an instant. I've given this example before. If you got some news that you won the lottery, or you got some news that you were going to have a baby, or you got some news that a parent was terminally ill, or another family member was terminally ill, it's not going to take you like, well, let me process this and think about it for a couple weeks, and then I'll figure out, how it's going to integrate into the bigger picture of my life. You feel something and it changes you. And what I'm trying to argue here is that anytime you can, it doesn't have to be an external event. Anytime you can make a choice and create something different in your life. And I think a really important aspect of this idea is understanding that every choice you make takes away from every other choice that you could make. Now, that's a term called opportunity cost. And what opportunity cost is, for example, I'm doing a podcast right now. So by committing to doing this podcast, recording this podcast to come here and share this with you, I'm saying no to every other thing that I could do. Every other thing. I'm not checking my phone. I'm not going on social media. I'm not talking to friends. I'm not writing an email. I'm not making a social media post. I'm not trying to make sales. I'm doing this. I'm not arguing about politics or the ketogenic diet, right, on Twitter. I'm doing this. And so this choice that I'm making right now better be a good choice. And I want you to think about that next time you're doing something and caught up in the moment. Think every time you choose to do something, is this the thing that you are choosing to do because you want the end result? So many of us, we don't. We feel like something else is at play. And we're going to talk about that in a second. If you feel like you're a little bit out of control, we're going to talk all about that today. But I want you to think about this, right? Every time that you do something, you're saying no to everything else. So what you need to do is take control of the direction of your life and understand every time that you say yes, If you're taking your kids to school, you're saying no to everything else. So that might be an okay thing to do because you love to spend that time with them in the morning, and you feel like you're talking with them, spending time with them, showing love to them, and setting them up for success in school. Or maybe you have like some type of exercise or meditation regimen in the morning. And by doing that exercise or meditation or morning ritual, you're saying no to everything else that you could be doing. And it's because you believe that it sets you up. It's giving you tremendous value and helping you for the rest of the day, for the rest of the week, for your whole life. Or you could also be a person who, I hit the snooze button and went back to bed. I rushed to work and stood in line at Starbucks and got a grande double frappuccino, whatever, filled with sugar and caramel sauce because it makes you feel so good. And so you get to work and you've spent that time in the morning sleeping in. You spent the time at Starbucks to get some sugary drink. So you said no to everything else. So another thing is if you're arguing online or checking, one thing that I've seen people do a lot is that they're checking online. I'm on Facebook. Listen, let me be super straight with you here. I'm on Facebook to help people and for business reasons. So I'm very strategic about why I'm there, what I do when I'm there. And I'm not going to lie and tell you that I don't get sucked into the Facebook vortex. And like, I'll go on there to make a post, and then or to get back to a message, and then I'll get sucked into the news feed and get lost and completely forget while I was on Facebook. It happens. But the idea is be intentional. Take control of your thoughts and be intentional about what you're doing, about how you're spending your time. You need to take control and ask yourself every time you're doing something, is this going to give me the result that I want in my life? It's so simple, but people don't do it. And you already know this at some level. You didn't need me to tell you about the concept of opportunity cost, and perhaps you've even heard that term before. But the real question is, are you doing it or not? And you may be wondering, well, how do you do it? Well, it takes practice. You're going to have to use your cold cognition, your rational mind, to bring awareness to what you're doing and how you're spending your time. And you're going to have to exert a little bit of willpower, a little bit of control to start to shift and find solutions. So this is something that I've been helping my clients with, and this is something that I've been working on. So let's move on to the next thing that I want to talk about, mind viruses. And you may be wondering, well, kind of sounds like something that I might have heard about before. And of course it is. You feel it. I'm just giving a weird name to it. But have you ever heard the quote, people don't have ideas, ideas have people? Well, I'm going to argue here that people get infected with ideas like it's a virus. And what do viruses do? Well, the whole thing of a virus is that it's trying to survive and replicate just like every other living thing. And so how does a virus do that? Well, it infects its host, and then it hijacks the DNA, and it creates more viruses that way. So a mind virus, what is that? Well, I'm not really talking about something like an actual virus here. But what I'm arguing is that people do get infected, and it almost is like it's an entity unto itself. In fact, if you go back into some of the literature, people used to think that ideas did have kind of a spirit, like a possession, an ability to possess people. And they called it egregores. And that's a concept from occultism, where people, like I said, literally believed these things were entities that possessed people. And so what does that look like, in case that's a little bit far out for you? Well, thoughts turn into concrete ideas and then gather a following, and they take on a life of themselves and end up attracting more and more people to them. Take, for example, the idea that Trump is running the country into the ground. Take, for example, Islamic fundamentalism. Take, for example, the keto diet or the carnivore diet. Take, for example, the ending of Game of Thrones that people are really upset about. Think, for example, of the last viral outrage that people were just all over the internet, just retweeting and commenting and arguing and giving their energy, time, and power to this idea. And what I want to tell you is that these ideas, the more you feed them, the more powerful they become. And if you don't feed them, they die out and people forget. So Trump, for example, and I'm not arguing whether that's the truth or not, because that's not the point. The truth is, very few people are qualified enough to really do an accurate and emotionally detached and objective assessment of the good and bad of any president. Most of us are just attached to these ideas, the mind viruses, right? Either whether you're for Trump or against Trump, it doesn't even matter. And here's where I'm going with this. And we can use Trump because it's something that just bringing up his name is probably triggering you right now. There's a good chance that it is. And what I want to argue is it doesn't even matter if you're for him or against him. Let's say that you're against him. Let's say that every time, it's not even that he does something, but every time that someone tweets on Twitter or he tweets on Twitter or someone shares it on Facebook, you get it and then you pay attention to it and it sucks you into this idea. Trump is ruining the country. He's causing problems with China. I don't even know what's going on because I don't give this mind virus, this idea, any energy to it. I don't. And we'll talk about that in a second. So think about that. You start to give it your energy. So let's say you're at work and something comes up on your phone and you should be getting something done. But what do? You go to your phone, you start reading the article. And of course, the article has it has an opinion that it's trying to get across. And let's say it's against Trump and you're already against Trump. And it's feeding into this idea like, oh God, I can't stand that guy. God, he's ruining the country. Why can't people see it? How stupid people are. It's just so stupid. And it sucks away your energy. It sucks away. It exhausts you. And you're totally giving your power away. Because the truth is, you have to be honest with yourself and objective. Let's say you hate him. And you're reading about that stuff. And let's say you're engaging in conversation. You're calling all the Trump followers stupid. And you're arguing with them online. And you're just going to battle in what you believe is the right thing because gosh, he's destroying the country. But guess what? It's also, this behavior of yours is taking away from everything else you could be doing. So if you're getting paid to work and to be productive, you are shortchanging the person who's paying you. If you are supposed to be spending time with your kids and you're giving this idea, this mind virus, your energy, you're taking away from your children. If you have issues with your health because you're a few more pounds overweight than you should be, a few workouts behind than you should be, you're taking away from your health. And then you have to ask yourself, well, okay, but it's for a good cause though. And then you have to look at, okay, well, what exactly are the end results of me giving this idea energy online? What exactly happens? Are you getting Trump out of the presidency? Are you convincing people online? Are you causing are you getting a good return on your investment? You know the answer. You're a smart person. Of course you're not. You just feel compelled. And likewise, if you love Trump, see how this doesn't even matter. Let's say you love Trump and you think he's unfairly treated by people, unfairly treated by the media, hashtag fake news, MAGA 2020, right? And you spend all your time defending Trump online, tweeting people, telling people how they're stupid liberals, libtards. Oh, you liberals just can't think straight. Oh, you liberals, you have it all messed up. You can't even use your brain. When in reality, you're guilty of the same thing. You've got debt you need to pay. You've got kids you need to take care of, or maybe you're single and you need to get out there and meet someone because you're a bit lonely. Maybe you could be progressing in your career. Maybe you could just be spreading positive energy in your community, the people that you actually live around, because you ain't never going to meet Trump. And you're wasting your time. Because if you say, okay, well, since time is limited, and if I spend time doing this thing, this action, I'm saying no to everything else, and I look at what the end result of that action is for my life, you'll find that maybe it makes you feel good, maybe it gives you a sense of significance, but in reality, it's just junk food. You're eating junk food for the mind. You're fooling yourself and procrastinating. And it doesn't even matter if you love Trump or hate Trump. And it doesn't even have to be Trump. Maybe you're smart enough to know that giving your power away to politics is just not a good use of your time. And by the way, all the millionaires that I've ever trained, they don't do this, right? They don't do this. Or if they do, I actually had one client who loved to argue about politics, not with me, because I never argue with politics. But I always present these ideas like what I'm sharing with you now, which usually stumps people because they're like, gosh, so are you liberal or are you conservative? I'm like, neither. Depends on the issue. How about that? But what I want to tell you is, it doesn't even have to be about politics. It could be like these people who argue about the carnivore diet or the keto diet, or about how the writers of Game of Thrones really screwed up on that last episode. And I also want to point out to you the last viral outrage that happened. Remember, I don't even know what it is. I'm in Asia, have been traveling, and I haven't, really stayed on top of these things. But let's use, for example, the last episode of Game of Thrones. Let me ask you this. For the people who watched it and were really upset about it, I haven't watched it, so maybe you're justified. I don't know. Maybe it was as terrible as people were saying, the ending. I don't know. Maybe it was that much of a letdown. But do you think in 2 months you're going to give a crap? Do you think in 6 months you're going to look back and say, God, I'm glad I got on social media and had all those conversations with my coworkers about that last Game of Thrones episode? That was really a great use of my time. And so what I want to argue, and I mean, do we even really need to answer that question? Of course, the answer is no. You're not going to look back and say, and you're definitely not going to go onto your deathbed and say, you know what, I'm so glad I argued about that stuff. It really made life worth living. It's one of those things I look back on, just that Game of Thrones, the way Game of Thrones ended, and just, I'm so glad I stood up for the injustice of that ending. Of course not, right? Of course not. And listen, I'm talking like, I don't mean to sound condescending because I get caught up in the same thing. I hope I don't come across as condescending. I'm making fun of being a human being right now and how ridiculous we are and how we try to argue, oh no, Ted, I got to stay informed. I can't stop watching the news. How are you going to stay informed if you stop watching the news? It's like, well, what do you do with that information? Show me the results, right? Show me the return on investment. And most of us can't show anything. We just have more debt, more wasted time, more things we could have done, should have done, and can't do because that time's gone. And what I'm telling you is to stop falling into these these mind viruses. Stop getting infected. Stop the groupthink. Well, how do you do that? Well, the first thing is you got to realize when it's happening. And we're going to talk about how to develop awareness of this in a bit. But right now, we're going to stay with this idea. We're going to talk about this. But you've got to be aware when you're being sucked into an idea, whether it's how, men are just ruining everything for women because hashtag the patriarchy, or whether it's Trump, or whether it's how feminists are ruining everything and the fabric of a good society. It doesn't even matter the idea sometimes, right? And I'm not saying not to have passion and not to believe in things. I'm saying be aware of how much energy you give it and be aware of the return on the investment of that energy. Are you making the results? Are you getting where you want in your life? And if the answer is yes, then completely ignore me and keep doing what you're doing. But if the answer is no, which it probably is, I mean, how many of us are truly living an amazing life where we're like, oh God, I'm so hashtag blessed, right? Not many. We're stressed. We work jobs that we're not feeling like we're that connected to, crushing our souls. We wish we could spend more time with our kids. We wish we could spend more time taking care of ourselves. We wish we could spend more time being happy. And I'm telling you how to create that for yourself. In fact, the next thing I want to talk about is how to create your own luck. Have you ever noticed that some people just have bad luck all the time? One bad thing happens after another in a cascade of negative events. And maybe their life was going well at first, but then someone died, or they got laid off, or their spouse cheated on them, or they went through bankruptcy, or there was a financial collapse in 2009 and they were living the high life, and then boom, it turned. And that one bad event turned into a bad day. Then that bad day turned into a bad week. And then that bad week turned into a bad month. And then that bad month turned into a bad year. And that bad year turned into a bad life. On the other hand, have you ever noticed how some people just seem to have everything going right for them? And that one good thing happens after another. And it's like everything they touch turned into gold, and you look at them and you're like, I hate that person. You know, it seems like they can't, how are they so happy in this world that seems so full of negativity and injustice? I mean, are they not paying attention? What's going on, right? Are they just blessed by the universe, by God, by whatever's out there? And what I want to tell you is that positive energy and success builds momentum. Conversely, negative energy and failures build momentum too. And failures, I'm not talking about things not going right for you. That happens all the time. But your perspective about it. And this should be a rule. And I also want to tell you, when you create, accept, or transmit negative energy and feelings to others, you start creating a negative reality for yourself. And I'm not talking about new age, woo-woo, airy-fairy type of stuff. I'm just talking about an observation here. I mean, don't you have people in your life who you just can't stand to be around? You're like, oh God, all they're going to do is complain. It's like every time I hang out with them, they use me like their emotional tampon, and I just come soaked with their negativity. Sorry for the graphic there, but that's a friend of mine, a psychologist friend of mine. Actually, she's a really well-known psychologist. She kind of coined that phrase, or at least she's the first person who used it and taught it to me. But it's like people vomit their negativity all over you, and then you feel all icky afterward. And then you're like, I'm not going to hang out with that person. Don't we all know people like that? Or maybe are you that person? And it's really simple. right? When you create, accept, or transmit negative energy and feelings to others, you create a negative reality for yourself. You repel good people and you attract other people who are like, yeah, life sucks. Oh God, it's so unfair. So many injustices. It must be, it must be feminism that's doing this. It must be the patriarchy that's doing this. It must be Trump that's doing this. It must be the liberals that are doing this. We all look for something to blame. And we get in that victim mindset and we get stuck there and we just repel everybody else who doesn't have that mindset and then attract everybody else who does have that mindset. And then we get stuck in that mind virus again, where it's just this idea that's taken over people and just keeps reinforcing itself. And then you want to stay with that group because in neurobiological terms, you start releasing oxytocin, which binds you to those people. And a lot of people don't know this about oxytocin, which is a neurotransmitter that is released when babies breastfeed with their mothers and is released when you're bonding with a friend. And it's released when you spend time and you create that a bond between people. But what it also does, because there's a negative side to oxytocin, is that you start to gang up on people who aren't part of the group. It creates this us or them dynamic. And when you create, accept, and transmit positive energy and feelings to people, you create a positive reality for yourself. You start to attract more people who believe that they want to be around the positivity. They want to be around, and I'm not talking about pretending the world is a way that it isn't, pretending that everything's right in the world, but accepting it and still being joyful and positive and making a difference and powerful, feeling like you're powerful enough to make a difference in the world. Those people attract others and repel the other people. I won't hang out. I will have got zero tolerance for people with that victim mindset, unless you're a coaching client, and then I'm going to coach you right out of it because nobody hops on a call with me and thinks the same afterward. So how do we do this? How do we create this positive? How do we create, accept, and transmit positive energy and feelings to create this momentum that leads to this luck? And what I want to tell you is it's not close enough to close yourself off from external negative energy. It's not enough to not watch TV. It's not enough to, get yourself away from, the types of people who are just bitching and moaning about whatever it is. You need to make sure you're not a source of it. And what I want to tell you is be ruthless about cutting out negative influences in your life. If social media is driving you nuts, then delete your social media apps and block yourself on your computer. You want to know what it takes? This is what it takes, because the truth is you're a human being and you just will not succeed without controlling your environment and engineering your environment for success. So if the news about Donald Trump or on the other side, liberal politicians is getting you crazy, block yourself from accessing news sites on your computer and phone. I mean, literally block yourself. On my phone, I am blocked from social media. I don't go on to read articles on the internet, on CNN or Fox News about politics. That's not my personal problem. But I do get lost on social media. So what I've done is I have an iPhone. I go into screen time and I've only given myself an hour of social media time. And once I've hit that hour, it blocks me out.
Access denied. Access denied.
That's what you need to do. And you need to have an approach if you feel the negativity starting to come up in you, because I was in a bit of a moany, bitchy state myself recently. I was like, I don't know what to do. What is my message? I'm feeling disconnected from what I'm doing. Where's my message? What is my message? What am I trying to share here? I felt like I was getting sucked into the negative vortex. And so what I did was I had a coaching call with Peter Sage. That changes you up real quick. Having a coach is one of the most powerful things that is the most powerful thing that you can do, because they'll get your ass in gear. But I know not everybody has the resources, right? Especially if you're in your 20s or in a really bad financial situation and you're listening to this podcast to try to get out of that bad situation after a divorce, after losing your job, whatever it is. And I would even argue there, getting a coach probably is still worth it, as long as you get a good one, because a bad one will actually put you even into a worse situation. Been there, done that. But you can also use sunlight, exercise, meditation, good food, going to bed early, and spending time with friends and family, spending time with nature, and going on adventures that disconnect you from that negativity. I went and did that the other day. Giselle and I were really stressed out about all the problems we've been having with our business. I haven't shared this, I don't think, but we hired and fired over 6 virtual assistants because they kept on just not doing their job right. But after a while, you can't blame the assistants. You have to blame yourself, because the common denominator here is that it is us. So we just gave up on trying to hire an assistant until we could really take the time and find one who would perform up to our standards. So we went and did a day of meditation, and then we went and had an adventure in the national park and disconnected from social media, from the internet, from work, and we're just out in nature. So you have to be able to do those things. And I want to tell you this too. You need to carefully cherish, support, and build on every little bit of positive success and positive change that comes your way. I mean, celebrate it, support it, acknowledge it, write it down, give yourself a pat on the back, reward yourself, not with food, by the way, but do something, celebrate those, and find people to help celebrate those. That's how you build powerful momentum that leads to a lucky life. And I just want to share one more thing here, is that how do we develop the awareness to realize when we're falling into these traps, when we're falling into the trap that we think that we have no other choice, even though our choices are literally limitless, infinite choices these days, infinite variations of choices. How do we develop awareness when we're getting sucked up into some groupthink, some mind virus, some toxic tribalism that seems like a good cause? But then when we look at the effects on our life, there's no good results. We're still in debt. We're still out of shape. We're still stressed. We're still not sleeping well. We're sleeping worse because we're so upset about the way we think the world is going, even though all the statistical data says we're living in the best time ever, with more people who are literate than ever, which is a huge deal. More people who are living under democratically ruled countries than ever, which, if you think war is a bad thing, then that's a great thing. People have more money than ever, unless you have unless you think being an ascetic and living on the fringes of society, wearing loincloths and eating one meal a day and preaching how you're so spiritually evolved because you've renounced all material possessions. You need money, not because it can buy you a new purse and shoes, but you can afford to hire a coach. You can afford to pay for your physical therapist. Like my dad keeps going to physical therapy. I want to keep that going for him. I want to take a trip with him. Money is necessary. So what I'm telling you is you've got to develop awareness. And how do you do that? So that you don't get sucked into these groupthink mind viruses that completely take you over and then leave you with nothing, especially the ones that peter out. Because guess what? Trump's going to be gone, right? He's either going to be gone in 2020 or he's going to be gone in 2024. Eventually he'll be gone. And guess what? You'll be left with your life and you won't have Trump to blame. Well, maybe if you're a creative victim, you can still kind of just say he ruined your life and you haven't been able to recover. But the truth is, our success in our life happens with the actions that we take on a day-to-day basis. So how do we develop the introspection? And the one thing that I want to tell you is that meditation is the most powerful practice that you can have, that can start to give you some space between the things that trigger you, between the events that you get exposed to and your emotional reaction to it. Most of us don't have any space. We start to read an article online, or we see a video on Twitter that's taken out of context, and we just become instantly enraged. And it just sucks us away from what we're trying to accomplish. And all the good that we could do for the people in our life, for our family, for our community, for our country, for the world. So having meditation, a meditation practice, is one of the most powerful ways you can do this. And I'm not going to talk too deep about meditation because I'm coming out with an episode that I've had to scrap and redo. I recorded it, then I erased it, then I'm going to redo it. That was part of the struggle I was struggling with. And now I've come up with something that I believe, after, talking to some of you, thank you, Eric. Thank you, Mish. Thank you, Morgan, for giving me some feedback on what you wanted to know about meditation. And I will be doing that meditation episode very soon. We'll be releasing it. But what I want to tell you is there will be a point where even if you're exercising, even if you're doing eating well, even if you're making the changes you want to make in your body, if you're not doing something to train your mind, you can still get sucked into it. You can still get sucked into this stuff. And meditation is the most powerful thing that you can do to start to give yourself some space, so that you start to observe the fact that your thoughts, you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions. You are the blue sky, and the clouds that pass through you are the thoughts and emotions. And some of the clouds are happy clouds. Some of the thoughts are negative. Some of the clouds are negative clouds. Sometimes the clouds bring thunder and lightning. Sometimes those clouds bring rain that lasts for days, but at the end they go away and you are left. It's always you. No matter how cloudy it seems, no matter how overcast, no matter how blocked out the blue sky and that shining sun is, it is always there, and that is you. And that's the space that you can get to, the place that you can get to when you develop a meditation practice. So I will just leave you with what I've been doing recently. Go to dharmaocean.org. That's DHARMA Ocean, OCEAN.org. So dharmaocean.org. I've been doing the meditations there recently. Most of the time I just do meditations on my own. But lately I've been really, really enjoying the meditations from dharmaocean.org. And no affiliation there, other than I would like to get Reginald Ray on the podcast to talk about the type of meditations he does. So no, just an endorsement in the terms of just using their stuff, but it's not, there's no affiliate relationship, and they haven't asked me to promote them or anything. Same thing with Headspace. You can use Headspace or Waking Up with Sam Harris, but I really would like you to go to Dharma Ocean and try those out. In fact, that's what I've been sharing with all my coaching clients. So take note of that, because those are people who pay me good money to get information like what I'm sharing you now. Of course, they got more skin in the game, so they're taking action on it. So I want you to go there and take action on it. Give it a try. And if you don't want to go there, find something, but do something. Try to get into a mental practice, some sort of mental practice, because listening to a podcast, reading, playing Luminosity or brain training apps, that ain't mental practice. That's not what I'm talking about. And we'll talk about the scientific benefits of meditation on the meditation episode, but just know it's a powerful thing that is an ancient practice with thousands and thousands of years of anecdotal evidence and now scientific evidence proving that it works. And you don't have to convert to Buddhism or Hinduism or wear a crystal around your neck or change your name to Astrakhan and rub the quartz crystal in the direction of your chakras. To do meditation, you can just do it and benefit from it without any of the weirdness, okay? Without any of the other stuff involved. But it's powerful. All right, so that is what I want to leave you with. And I want to thank everyone. I want to share gratitude with you. I'm very thankful that you are listening to this podcast. I'm very thankful for those of you who have been listening for a while that you've been through the changes, ups and downs that this journey has been, not just for me, but for you, for everyone involved, for all of us. And I just want to express gratitude for you. And that's all I've got. I hope today helped you a lot. I hope you make a shift. And if this does help you, and if you do make a shift, please reach out to me on social media at Ted Ryce, TEDRYCE on Instagram, or Ted Ryce on Facebook. Reach out to me. Let me know that this is making a difference, and let me know what you implemented. Let me know if this had an effect on you. I want to hear from you. Wish you the best. Have a great week, and I'll speak to you soon.